Okay, right. So a very good evening, guys. Can you let me know if you can what see and also look at see a screen, hear me, and all of it. All of it is good. Yes, all good. Give me a second. Right. Okay. So in terms of classes, today, guys, we're going to do two things. First is we're going to discuss revision paper number 3. That is the paper on economic systems. That was the paper that you all were supposed to submit by 6 p.m. today. So far we have completed 2 areas completely. We're done with focus area 1, that is revision paper 1, and also focus area number 2, where we did revision paper number 2. I hope you all, did you all check your marks, Lamai, that you all got yesterday? Your mock papers were sent yesterday. That is revision paper number 2. Yeah. Just go through and see, look at the comments, see if there are any. Now, sometimes if your answers are good, there might not be a comment. But maybe if there is space to improve here and there might be a comment or two. So look into that, right? Look into that, see where you have lost marks, compare your answer with the marking scheme. Now, if, for example, let's say there is a 6-mark question, they have only given you, let's say, 4 marks. So you compare your answer with the marking scheme and see, what have I not wrote, right? Why have they cut these 2 marks? Okay, what is the format of writing? Maybe I have given a paragraph-based answer, you have wrote it in a point form thing. Sometimes my answer is a point form thing, you have gone and written in a paragraph one. So just see, Lama, look at the format of writing, look at how you have structured versus how I have structured the answers. That doesn't mean that you have to exactly write what I have given in the marking scheme. But compare and see. That is where, Lama, you have to improve. Because otherwise, now this whole point of doing all these papers, now you all were supposed to do the past papers, you all were supposed to do a take-home paper, you all were supposed to get all of that done, no? But the problem is, there is no point of doing all those papers, Lama, if you all are not improving on your thing. That is what you need to work on. So maybe the first few papers, Lama, you might not get the full marks. Your answer format might not be that great. But if you realize in this whole revision program until unit 11 and 12, in total, Lama, we will be doing close to around 100 papers. No? So unit 1, you had around 11 papers, no? Take home, main revision papers, all of that. So you will be looking at around 100 papers completed by the end of February. So there, every paper, Lama, little by little, you will improve. Every paper will be different also. The questions will be different, right? So work on your answer writing there. That's what I want you all to do. And especially now, even in the discussion, while I am discussing, now you all have the paper that you have wrote your answers. No? Make notes, in a red pen or, anything, make notes. See, what am I saying? What have you written, right? Why is sir saying something like, I can add something like this. So keep on doing that. Little by little, you all will improve, Lamai. Some of you all might have seen some sort of improvement already. That is nice to see. But eventually, Lamai, once we have done certain amount of papers, the flow of writing will come. The papers might get hard. Now, this paper, Lamai, for revision paper number 3 is a little difficult. You all would have seen there were questions about the invisible hand. There was questions about Lamai. There was one on consumer sovereignty. I've talked about a mixed economy and solving income inequality. Now, those are not things that we would have directly discussed in class. Those are things you would have, had to, think a little bit out of the box and write. But those writing, the more and more you write, the answer flow will get better. I mean, do you all at least see a difference a little compared to the first day to where you are right now? If you have done all the papers now, not just the 2 these things, you've done all the past papers as well. Yes, I got the chat issue sorted. Yes. Yes, that thing is done. Guys, how many of you all did the take-home paper also? How long did it take you to do? Take-home paper, you were supposed to do 1 and 2. At least if you've done one of it, that is okay. Did at least one of the take-home papers. Take-home papers are actually very small, Lamai. It's 10 MCQs and 1 essay question. So that should take, I would say, maximum 45 minutes to 1 hour. The answers are also there at the inside the file itself. You can go through. If you have questions on the take-home papers, anything that you're not sure and all of it, you can let me know. Okay, right. It's easy, no? It's much easier than this. That's just there for you to do. Okay, so then in terms of this, right, I have a few questions on the chat box. Right. The recording for these classes, Lama, are usually my revision classes and all the paid classes that I do, I edit onto my website. But since I'm doing the unit 1 revision for free, I'm putting it on YouTube because website means, Lama, I have to create accounts for you all of that is done. So since these classes that I'm doing, I will most likely put it on YouTube, maybe not immediately, within a day or two, I'll put it there. The papers, then I'll share the PDFs if you all want, but I think I have sent all of you all a printed version of the whole set of tutes as well. So, okay, one more reminder. So what you can do is, Lame, now from July onwards, revision classes will not be free anymore. If you think the program is worth it, right, since you all now have come for 3 weeks, there is one more free class next week. That is where we finish off unit number 1. But you can pay and register as well. And then once you pay and register, Lamai, the tutes for revision 2 will be sent. For the ones who are in the theory class, you will also be getting unit number 5 in theory. So anyone who is planning to join Lama, unit number 5 could be an ideal place for you to join, because unit number 5 is where we start macroeconomics. Now unit 1, 2, 1 is like a general unit. No, 2, 3, and 4 were microecon. From unit 5 onwards is where we start off with macroeconomics in your syllabus. Unit 5 to 12 is macroeconomic units. So it's not even connected to 1, 2, 3, 4. So even if you don't know 1, 2, 3, 4, you will perfectly understand unit number 5. So you can start with unit number 5 even in the theory class. If you want to cover up many previous unit, you can purchase the recording and the tute and cover it up. That option is also there. So revision class number next week is where we finish off unit number 1. So that class will still remain free because unit 1 is what I will be doing for free. But you can register before, Lame. The earlier you register, the earlier we will send you the tutes. So don't wait until the last moment to register. I'll send you all the details for the fees and all of it. So the fees will be, Lame, give me a second. Let me share my screen and jot that down. So in terms of the fee, yeah, the unit 4 exam and the unit 3 exam. For theory, we need to have both of those. I'll let you all. Okay. Second. Okay. This is the screen. Hold on. Okay. So in terms of the fee, Nama, how it would be is, now the normal theory class students, you all have been paying 3,000 a month. That is the fee that you all have been paying. So if you're only coming for theory, the fee will not change. It is still 3,000 a month. If you're coming for theory, in July, we are starting unit number 5. So theory only is a 3,000 a month. If you're only coming for revision, okay, not coming for theory, you're only being a part of revision. So revision only, you will be paying a 3,200 a month. So that is in total a 6,200. But if you're coming for both theory and revision, I have a discount for you. If you're coming for theory and revision both, you can pay Lamai a 5,500. So effectively, that's a 2,500 more if you're already a theory class student. So in terms of this, now that most of that money goes into, 1 is to print your set of papers, and 2 is to mark your papers as well. So if you really look at this, from the 2,500 I get from you for revision, I don't really make a lot of money. To print that whole set of papers with the file and all of it, it cost me close to around 1,000 rupees. And even to get your papers marked every week. So within 6 days, I mark your papers and give them. So within 6 days to mark the 200 odd papers, there's a huge team behind marking. So for all the papers that they mark, they also get paid. So there is a payment that I make for all of them as well. So effectively, there is not much of a profit that I make. I'm trying my level best to keep the fee as reasonable as possible, so that on my end, I also can survive. On your end, it's something that is fair for you as well. Okay, so that's the combined fee of around 5,500 if you're coming for theory and revision both. So maybe after this class, I think in the theory class groups, the payment details were sent. In the revision class group and all, we will send the payment details that is there. Okay, so the tutes, Lamai, for unit number 1, I think we have sent it to all those people who have registered, who have filled the registration form. If any of you all have still not registered for the free month, unit number 1, I'm not very sure if I have any remaining tutes. I printed close to around a 500 odd tutes. But if there is, I will send it. If not, that is all. If not, I will send you this. because I printed my 500 sets. I'm not printing again. I'm not printing unit number 1 again. But if there is, I'll definitely send, because there is nothing that I can do with the tute now. Okay, right. So today we have two things to do in terms of today's class. One is we need to discuss my revision paper number 3. So for those who did it, how is the paper, Lamai? Was it manageable? Shape? For every month, you have to fill a form. It's the same form. There are no two forms. You can drop me a text. I'll send you a message to register. Okay. How is the paper? Shape? Okay. How did you all handle the questions that were a little difficult? The one on the mixed economy, solving income inequality. There was a question on Sri Lanka solving income inequality. Sorry, Sri Lanka being a mixed economy. How was that? It was maybe a bit harder than paper 1 and 2, but okay, not impossible. No? You can, manageably write something there. So we'll discuss this paper, right? We'll go through the paper. I'll tell you what you could have written. And then after that, so we'll take around 1 hour for this. And once that is done, we'll then move into the last focus area. So unit number 4, the last focus area, is on the PPC, production possibility curve. Now that is a very, very important area. So we'll go through that area today. Then next week, that is your last class for unit number 1, we'll discuss the 4th area, revision paper number 4, and also any past papers, any take-home papers. If there are any difficult questions, we'll discuss those as well. So then with next week's class, unit number 1 is completely done. And the free month will be over from next Tuesday. But you all can start paying the fee as early as possible so that we have time to send it there. Right. Past papers, did you all do the past papers as well? I'll send you all the answers, but my answers are all same as the ones that is there in the back of this thing. What? Yes, did the past paper focus areas all done? 1, 2, and 3. Good. I think 3 is big, no? Past paper, especially, do you all do 3? The one on economic systems? I think one on economic systems has a lot of questions. Past paper focus area 2 was short. 2 was not that big. Right? Yes, you can watch the recordings on the YouTube as well. I would have sent there. So along with that, if you get stuck, you can watch. Okay. So what I'll do is probably after class, all the material that we have done so far, I will send. Okay. Theory and revision, yes, will be couriered together. So you don't have to pay the courier charge multiple times. Okay. Now, right. So we'll start with the paper. So I want you all to give me answers, stay engaging, and then we can finish it soon. So I have 2 things to do. One is this, and one is the focus area 4. The more you support, the faster I will finish. Right. So yeah, past papers, if you can't write alone, at least watch the recording on YouTube that is there and do it. That's all right. Okay. So question number 1. It's a 9-mark question. Now, in your paper, you're not going to get a 9-mark question like this. So in your paper, what they can do is they can give you some of this to write. So you all know there are 3 economic systems. There are 3 basic economic problems. So there are 9 possible things that they can ask you. So which one of these they will ask you, we don't know. Now, sometimes, the question could be, they can ask you, distinguish between a market economy and a command economy based on how they answer the what to produce question. So then you will have to write only this and this. Sometimes they might ask you market and command, how they answer all of it. Then you might write all 6 of this. So which one of this is we don't know. That's why I gave you a question to write all 9. So I gave it to you in a box kind of a format. Usually in your A-level paper, don't have a format like this. In your A-level paper, if they ask you to explain, nicely paragraph format, you explain. But here I gave you this box kind of a thing so that it also acts like a short note for you there. Okay, right. So you get 1 mark for each of the boxes. We'll start. So how does the market economy answer the question what to produce? So how does the market economy answer the question what to produce? Remember, I told you based on what? Based on price mechanism. How do they allocate resources is based on price mechanism. Don't talk too much about private ownership. That's not the point there. Okay. So you talk about, say that they look at the based on price mechanism, They look at lamai the price signals. I told you. So remember the signaling function of price. So in a market economy, lamai, the producers will see which price, which goods are the prices going up, which goods are the prices going down. If I then supply this, okay, this is the price, this is how much I can get as a profit. If I supply this, this is what I can get as a profit. So they look at those price signals, lamai, and they analyze and see. And what do? Based on price mechanism, they figure out, lamai, they select the most profitable goods and services, and that is what they produce. So you need to have those keywords, lamai. You need to talk about price mechanism. You need to say they look at the price signals and then say they will select the most profitable good to produce. So if you have done that, I will give you 1 mark. So 1 mark for each of these boxes. Then, Lamai, how does a market economy answer how to produce? You can talk a little bit about invisible hand, but these points should also be there. Okay. How do they answer how to produce? Again, they look at, Lamai, the price signals in the factor market. They see, okay, if I use labor, how much should I pay? What will be my cost? If I use capital and do this, then how much is my cost? So you will look at the price signals and then you will decide, Lamai, whether it is labor intensive or capital intensive, which one is the cheaper one? Which method is cheaper? Which will minimize my cost and maximize my profit. You will look at that. So depending on, Lamai, how your answer is, Lamai, I will allocate marks. So don't worry too much about it. We'll see. Okay. So where your profits will be maximized and your cost will be minimized, you will select that method. And then factor market is, Lamai, where factors of production are bought and sold. Labor market, where capital is bought and sold. That's what we call a factor market. Factor market, better to mention that. Okay. And then the whom to produce. How do they answer whom to produce, Lamai? Again, what they do is they look at the price signals. Where do they look at now? Now here, Lamai, they look at both the price signals, and based on price mechanism, what do? They distribute the goods to whoever who has the purchasing power. Remember, market economy doesn't care about distributing goods equally, no? Right? Based on price mechanism, whoever who has the purchasing power will get the goods. That's how the goods are distributed. And if you have talked about it, Lama, you'll get 1 mark. That's a market economy. Now you go into a command economy. Now, how does a command or a planned economy answer this? Now, command or a planned economy, how do they answer what to produce? They use the planning mechanism. You have someone called the Central Planning Authority. This Central Planning Authority, you can think of this like the government. They make plans and they decide, all right, this is what is good for the society. These are the resources we have. With these resources, these are what we can produce. What is good for the society? So they do a bit of an input-output analysis, Lamai. They see, මේවා තමයි අපි ගාව තියෙන resources. These are the ones that we have. With this, what can we produce? If I produce this, then what is the benefit for the society? If I produce this, what is the benefit for the society? So they do that analysis. And what do, Lamai? They produce the goods that give the greater social welfare. Now, here see, Lamai, how it's different from a market economy. In a market economy, they looked at the price signals, produce the most profitable goods. Now, these guys, in a command economy, you have the Central Planning Authority. They use the planning mechanism and they properly look at, they do an input-output analysis and see, these are my resources, these are my inputs, these are what I can produce. So based on this, which one is beneficial for the society? That is what they will produce, Lamai. That's how they decide on what to produce. Then how does this command economy answer how to produce? How to produce, Lamai? Again, same strategy. You have the Central Planning Authority, right? They will make certain plans. How will they make these plans? Again, they will see, Lamai, now how to produce is the two techniques, no, labor intensive or capital intensive. So they will see which technique gives the highest benefit to the public. Now, let's say in a situation where there is so much of people who have lost jobs, right? No jobs on all of it. Maybe capital intensive might be cheaper, but they will use labor intensive land because they want to create the jobs there. So they will see it. There is no rule saying they have to definitely use labor. Whatever that is good for the society, whatever that gives the best benefit for the society, under that method is what they will choose. They are not going to look at cost of production, all of it. It doesn't matter. Now, good example I can give you is Lamai. If you all remember, I don't know if I told you all, in this, the Ceylon Electricity Board. Yeah. Ceylon Electricity Board Lamai. Now, think of you, the electricity board who is giving us electricity. How much of security guards do you think is there in the Ceylon Electricity Board? Any guesses? So if I'm not missing, I think the number would have changed now. It's just a normal firm, right? The Ceylon Electricity Board, I remember once there was a news article going around, they had 600 security guards. 600 security guards in the electricity board. Why? You don't need 600 fellows to 20 guards. Electricity board, right? Why 600? And that is because the government is doing it, no? Because the government is doing it, what do they try to do? They try to protect labor. And remember, yes, I told you all about the government buses. Remember, the red color CTB bus that goes in this thing. So how many people have to ideally be working in a bus? In one bus, you need to have one driver, one conductor, two people. That's the ideal amount in a Sri Lankan bus working. But according to the Sri Lankan Transport Development Board, there are 4 people for each bus. So that means while 2 people are going on a trip and coming, the other 2 are just waiting in the depot. In the bus depot, bus main stop, they are just sitting and waiting. So why they do that is now when those are government things, no? Definitely it's an additional cost. But government's motive is not to make profits. Government's motive is social welfare. So government will think, if I fire all these people, then what will happen to their families? Their families will not have money to live. Anna, that is what the government looks at. Government looks at this thing. Now, even another example I would have given you all, the electricity and water board. Every month, you have a fellow coming and reading your electricity meter. Every month, you have a fellow coming and reading the water meter. Yeah. Can't you make this one fellow? You can cut down half of the jobs. Can't the same person, right now, both are government-owned business. I understand they are 2 different businesses. But given that it is government-owned, can't one person come and read the electricity meter and the water meter and go? Half of the jobs you can cut off, you can save money. But they won't do that, because they want to protect employment. But a better solution for that is, you can, what? The whole electricity meter, water meter, and all of it, you don't have to have someone manually coming and reading it. You can automate those. You can, now with all the technology that is out there, do you think in developed countries, there is someone going house to house and reading electricity meters? No, they've automated. For example, like your phone bill, based on how much of calls you have taken, every month you'll get a phone bill. Just like that, you can do it with your electricity meter, based on how much of electricity you have used. If they have automated and connected it, maybe to your message, email, it will come. This month you have used this much of it, pay this much. You can. But why aren't they doing it? Because if they do that, so many people lose jobs. So that's the whole point there when deciding, right? Exactly, it can be more accurate. When deciding on how to produce, they don't care about profit and all. They can definitely increase profits, cut down costs by automating a lot of things. But that's not what their motive is, no? Their motive is social welfare. If people want jobs, and that is what they will look at. So that's the how to produce thing. Then finally, how does a command economy answer the whom to produce? You can talk a little bit about the environment, but that is not the main point. Okay. So how do they answer whom to produce now? Here, a command economy will look at distributing the goods equally. They don't want things to become unfair, no? They want everyone to get a share. So how do you distribute the goods equally using this planning mechanism? What will the government do? They will try to make sure everyone gets an equal wage. You might not have everyone getting the exact same thing, but they will minimize the income disparity. If there are really rich people, they'll charge huge taxes and give it to the poor as transfers. So they will try to make sure everyone gets the same amount as wages. And also, they will make sure that the prices are very reasonable, fair prices. So that way, all of us can get access to the same amount of goods. Now, if all of us here in this class, all am I earning 100,000 a month? That means all of us can buy 100,000 worth of goods. All of us gets the equal share. We might buy different things. You might buy string hoppers, I might buy bread. That is okay. But we all have access to the same amount, no? And that's how they distribute equally, Lamai. That's the thing. So you can't equally here. How do you make equality? You can't go from house to house and try to give the goods, no? So how they make sure there is equality, Lamai, is by making sure that these people's incomes, right, the wage rates and also the prices of the goods are set at certain levels. Then that equality gets maintained. That's the point. Distribute goods equally irrespective of the income. Not, you can't say irrespective of the income. You need to say that they control the income. That's how they try to distribute the thing. Okay, that. Then you have, Lamai, a mixed economy. So a mixed economy is where you have a combination of both of this. You have price mechanism also. You have the planning mechanism as well. Distribute goods, household mechanism requirement, not 100% correct. Okay. So how will they do this now? A mixed economy, I told you, there are two mechanisms. Now, Sri Lanka is a mixed economy. But even if in a mixed economy, price mechanism will be dominant. So mostly people will produce the most profitable goods. Price mechanism, most profitable ones is what they will produce. But whenever there is something unfair, government will come in. Now, take Sri Lanka. There is private education, private transport, private healthcare. Not everyone can afford it. So government knows not everyone has the money to go to a private school. Not everyone has the money to go to, let's say, a private hospital. And the government also now comes and produces certain goods. So the private sector will look at price mechanism, price signals, profitable goods, but the government will also provide certain goods. Like example in Sri Lanka, how does the government intervene? Government provides education. Government provides transport. Now think of the railway tracks. It's very cheap, no? Rail transport. Then government will provide healthcare, and the government intervenes to this what to produce thing, exactly the public goods. Then same way on the how to produce. How to produce also mainly using price mechanism. That means they will look at whatever method that minimizes their cost and maximizes their profit. That is how they will decide how to produce. But the government will also intervene. Maybe if the government wants to encourage more people getting jobs, what can the government do? They can provide subsidies. Government can come and, tell business firms, if you hire more than 1,000 people, we will give you subsidies. If you go and start a factory in a rural area and give jobs to all of those people, and we'll give you a subsidy. We'll give you a tax incentive. We'll reduce your taxes and give. Right? If the private firm is trying to pollute the environment, and the government will come and put environmental standards. Then if the private firms are exploiting the people, paying very low wages, and the government will set a minimum wage. And that is how to produce will be solved. Mainly price mechanism. Right? Minimum cost, maximize profit, but government will intervene. That's a mixed economy there. Then finally, the whom to produce. Again, mainly price mechanism. So whoever who has the purchasing power. Now think of Sri Lanka. Whom to produce means how much of goods you get. How much of goods each of our families get. Depends on our family's purchasing power. Some of us may be very poor. We might not be able to afford a lot of things. Some of you all who are here in this class might be very, very rich. You might be able to get a lot of goods out there. But doesn't the government intervene? From the very rich people, and the government charges huge amounts as taxes. Now think of for vehicles. Now right now, if you're buying a vehicle in Sri Lanka, there's so much of tax. The tax is close to around 200%. That means if you're buying let's say the landed value of a vehicle is 5 million, you have to pay a 200% tax. 200% tax can 10 million tax. That is why the vehicle that you're buying is 15 million. You're paying, let's say, even these electric vehicles that you're buying, electric vehicles product tax is low, but the normal other vehicles, it's close to around 200, 300%. Especially the high-end ones, the Range Rovers, Land Cruisers, the very high-end ones, those have close to around 300% tax. So because who can afford those high-end ones? If you're a person who can afford a Range Rover or a Land Cruiser, You're not the person who is struggling to meet your basic needs. So what the government does is, under rich fellows, you have money to buy a Range Rover, then pay taxes also. Under they charge those taxes, and every month government pays. Government gives money as aswasuma, right? For every family, every month. Now, if you all don't realize, close to around, if I'm not mistaken, latest available data, around 2 million, 2 to 2.3 million households are getting aswasuma. Now, 2 to 2.3 million households, if you take the entire country itself, there are only around 5-6 million households. So around 1/3 of Sri Lanka's population gets aswasuma payments every month. I don't think any of us here is getting that. I highly doubt. I highly doubt if you're someone who's getting aswasuma, you might not even be able to, maybe this free month, yes, but you might not even be a person who is able to afford an online class and come to class. So that's what they do, right? They distribute mainly based on purchasing power, but the government will intervene. So that's the story. So you need to explain that in a basic thing. Merit goods are like education, healthcare, those are merit goods. We'll learn in unit number 8. Don't worry. Okay. Is that fine? So 1 mark for each of it. You don't have to have the exact answer, but somewhere around this you need to have. Very important thing that is there. That's why I took some time to explain also. Okay. Now we'll go into question number 2. Question number 2 is saying, distinguish between a market and a planned economy, highlighting the key characteristics. So they're telling me, show the difference between this and this. Please don't give this answer in a table. A table format is very babyish. It's like something someone can make grade 8, 9 student writing answer. You can write table like this: market economy, price mechanism, this one planning mechanism. Don't give it like that. Maybe a structure like this could also be nice. Okay. So you give a small intro about what is a market economy, and they're telling highlight the key characteristics. You don't have to write all the characteristics. So maybe around 4 characteristics would have been nice. So what I will give is, yes, even paragraph is okay as long as it's there. So here you can, I'll give you 1 mark for talking about what is a market economy, right? What is a market economy? Right? A market economy is something, no, I will not deduct marks this time for a table format. Don't worry, but try to change that going forward. Okay. So 1 mark for talking about what is a market economy. So a market economy is something that answers the basic economic problems using price mechanism. Now I'm not going the characteristics. Last week we went through, no? So you all can read the characteristics. So the characteristics also, instead of just stating the characteristic, since my question verb says highlight, okay, what I would have done, I would give you a small 1-line thing for this thing. Now this thing, even in a paragraph format, is okay. Right? So even in a paragraph format is okay. That's all right. Get small define, and then you can go a little bit into detail. If you're not explained, there will be a certain amount of marks there. So what I want you is to have 4 points, right? 4 characteristics. Each characteristic you get half a mark. Therefore, you get 2 marks. That's how you get your 3 marks for that. And then you have to give a small definition. Then going into a command economy. What's a command economy? A command economy is something that answers the basic economic problems using the planning mechanism, or there is someone called the central planning authority. They have plans and commands. Based on that only they solve it. I'm gonna give that small intro. So then 1 mark for that. Then go into a little bit into the characteristics. Now you all know, no? Public ownership of resources, social welfare is the main motive, right? Planning mechanism, very high role of the government. You can talk a little bit about it. So any around 4, again, any 4, I'll give you half a mark each, total 2 marks. Yeah, depends. Depends on how you have written. You can have different this thing. Yeah, government ownership is fine. That's what you call public ownership of resources. So based on your format can be a little different. There is no rule saying it has to exactly be in my format. But I'm just recommending a format that I feel could be a nice way for you to get your full marks. Okay. So don't worry. You can have the same points in different formats. Now, for example, you all could have written, let's say 1 point saying a market economy uses price mechanism, while a command economy uses planning mechanism to do this. So you can say that, right? That is also fine. You don't have to talk about the advantages, disadvantages, characteristics should be okay now. You don't have to go into that detail. Okay. So then I've written a little bit extra, that's okay, but the main points have to be there. Okay. That. Then coming into question number 3. I'll share the answer scheme now. Don't worry. After class, I will say 4 points each, 4 characteristics. Explain the following concepts that relate to a market economy. First one is the invisible hand. What is this invisible hand, Lamai? You have heard about this invisible hand. And advantage characteristics, I would not recommend, because when there are main characteristics, go with that. Okay. Yeah, government owns resource. Command economy is there. That's what I'm saying. Public ownership of resource. The first point there. Public ownership means government owns. Public here means government. Huh? Okay. Then what is this invisible hand? Now, invisible hand is what you call price, the price mechanism. So if you look at in a market economy, everything even if the government doesn't intervene, based on the price, everything settles. Now, let's say for example, okay, let's say for example, there is what? There is a good that there is a huge demand. So many people want to buy. Okay. But there is not much of a supply. So how will that be solved, Ramai? How will that be solved? When there's a thing like there's a huge demand, so many people want to buy, there's very little supply of that, under the price of that good will rise, no? The price will start increasing if the demand is so high. Same thing the other way around. If the supply is so much, and if you have so much of a supply, but no one is willing to buy, automatically price will come down. So in a market economy, this price mechanism, in what we call the price, will automatically get the market into equilibrium. That is this whole price mechanism, invisible hand story. So when the question says explain, and when you have 3 marks for each, just writing price is not enough, right? You need to try to understand that. Because I have given, at least look at the lines that I have given. If I expect a 1-word answer, I will just give you 1 line. So here, there is no main note in this line. Okay, so here, an unobservable market force that helps demand and supply in a free market to reach equilibrium is called the invisible hand. So what is that unobservable force that helps demand and supply reach equilibrium? That is the price. See, the invisible hand in a free market economy is what you call price. So you can talk a little bit about that story. And then Adam Smith is where he mentioned this, and he said, a free market will function well when everyone will work for his or her own interest. So if someone is coming and charging a very high price, then no one will buy from them. Simple as that. Government doesn't have to intervene and control prices and do all of that. Now, you don't have to talk about the functions of price dilemma. That is if they ask for price mechanism. But here, the invisible hand, the price itself is what you have to go a little bit in detail. It's a bit of a difficult question, but learn from it. Okay. That. Then consumer sovereignty. What is consumer sovereignty? Consumer sovereignty is where the consumer is the most important person. What the consumer wants, only producers will produce. Based on the needs and desires of consumers, they can decide what they want. What the consumer wants, and the producers will come and produce. See, consumer sovereignty refers to the idea that in a market economy, the preferences, needs, and desires of consumers will determine the types of goods and services that will be produced. So they can talk about that too. And here, in other words, consumers hold the ultimate power in shaping the economy through their purchasing decisions. The Adam Smith part there is not very important. No one. Overall economic benefit. Yes, that's fine. Price and the functions of price, you will not get full marks. Okay, now done. Then that's question number 3, a bit of a difficult one. So invisible hand, once again, invisible hand can a price. That is what we learn in unit number 2, the whole market equilibrium story. That is that story. So when there is a very high quantity supply, right? If the quantity supplied is more than quantity demand, let's say someone is supplying very high amounts of a unit, but no one is willing to buy. Then how will the market get into a proper steady state? The invisible hand that will get the market properly to function is the price. The price will start coming down. If there is a huge demand for a good, right, and there is not much of a supply, so many people want to buy it, there's not much of a supply, now there's a shortage of that. Then how do you solve that? So again, price will now start. That's what you call now that invisible hand. Okay, now then question number 4. The signals, I will again not give marks for signals now. You don't need to talk about signal. That is price mechanism. Okay. Right. What are the main disadvantages of price mechanism? So when they say Lamai disadvantages of price mechanism, they're talking about Lamai disadvantages of a market economy. So a market economy Lamai uses price mechanism. So you should be smart enough there. Right? They're saying disadvantages of price mechanism as a means of allocating resources and justify whether government involvement is needed. Now see, Lamai, there are 2 parts of the question there. I've told you all, when you are writing Lamai, a question එක කඩා ගන්න. Don't all of a sudden randomly go and write. Now see, when you read this, now you see 6 marks. You have to Lamai පොඩ්ඩක් මේක, you don't have to වෙනම write on නෑ. පොඩ්ඩක් Lamai sketch. Then only Lamai you get the full marks. So see, they are talking about, okay, what are the main disadvantages? See, the question verb is what, Lamai. When they say what, you don't have to write paragraphs. What, Lamai, you can write in point form. When the question verb is what, remember. So, okay, I'll just give you all the question verbs. Can you all note this down, Lamai? If the question verb, okay, something I want you all to follow. If the question verb says, Lamai, what, okay, if it says list, if it says state, right? Be very mindful of these question verbs in your question. Huh? If it says mention, right? Here, Lamai, you can write an answer in point form. So, point form can Lamai, don't, to make it nice, don't write Lamai like 1 or 2 word points liyan epa. Right now, for example, let's say they ask you, okay, what are the characteristics of a market economy? What are the characteristics of market economy? So one characteristic you know is private ownership of resources. Sometimes even if you write that, they will give full marks. But remember, we are not targeting just to get a 75. You know? You all have to, Lama, in your exam paper, you have to impress your examiner. That's the whole point of this. Because whoever who is marking your paper now, 1 year, anyway, 1 year, let's say 1 year, 3 months down the line, you all will be doing your exam. Whoever who is marking your paper, Lama, doesn't know you. They haven't seen you. They don't know whether you are a male or a female. They don't know, are you from Colombo, out of Colombo, where? They don't know whether you are a private candidate, or school candidate, which school you went. They know nothing about you. That's just the index now. Now, your school teacher who marks your paper, Lamai, already knows you. There is a bit of a bias there. Now, even when I mark your papers, okay, I know, Lamai, who are the smart fellows, who are the fellows who don't know. Because I usually see, term exams, these are the people who score marks. So then with that, whether I like it or not, that is in my head. No, I can't get it out. So I know this is the top scorer for revision paper 1. So then next time when I'm marking revision paper 2, I will have that in mind. So then I know that with that bias only I mark it. But that doesn't happen in A-levels. In your A-level paper, you can, no one knows you. Right? Only thing they can judge you, only thing that they can judge you is based on your what? Based on what you write on that paper. So what you write on that paper is you have to impress the examiner now. They might not ask for examples. You give an example. They might not ask for a diagram. If you can, you draw a diagram and give. Right? They might have, talked about, mention, let's say 4 points. Right? Maybe you write a point extra. Show that you know. Don't write nonsense. Show that you know. So if the question verb says what list and all, don't put that in a paragraph. What list state mention, you give it that in point form. Point form also don't give like 1 or 2 word points. So if it says what are the characteristics of a market, I can write private ownership of resources. Put a small dash and explain that for 1 line. Practice those, Lamai. That is what makes you stand out. Then, now if the question verb says something like briefly explain. Briefly explain. So briefly explain, I would say, Lamai, is a paragraph, but not a very big words. But that also break it. Now, if they talk about, let's say, okay, question says, briefly explain the characteristics of a market economy. And they are giving you 4 marks. Then 4 characteristics. Each characteristic, lamai, 1 para, let's say around 3 to 4 lines. So 1 para of around 3 to 4 lines into 4 different points. That I would give you as a briefly explain. Now, this is not a rule. Nah. I am just giving the thing, right? That is briefly explain. One more thing, outline. So I'll put that before this. So if they say outline, lamai. So let's say they say something like outline the characteristics of a market economy. There, what I will say is bit longer points. So I would say something like a 2-line point. Okay. So like how I told you state, but a little bit more than state. That is what you call outline. And they say outline the characteristics. You can say, okay, private ownership of resources. Just write about 2 lines about it. Enough. Outline. Briefly explain is 1 step ahead of that. Briefly explain is like, let's say, briefly explain the characteristics of a market economy, 4 marks, and they talk about 4 characteristics. So each characteristic can be 1 paragraph. Don't put everything together. So then you will have 4 paragraphs, each paragraph around 3 to 4 lines. There is no rule saying it has to be 3 to 4 lines. I'm just giving you a structure, right? And then if they say things like this, explain, right? Explain. In some of my papers, I might use things like justify. Usually in the exam paper, there is not much, right? Discuss, right? So these kind of things is not there, right? So if that kind of a verb comes, describe, right? Now here, you have to give longer paragraphs. Right? So longer paragraph based answer. And that also might break your paragraphs. Huh? I'm not saying put all of it into one. If you're writing, let's say things, I'll show you. When we are writing, I'll show you all how the thing is, right? Longer paragraphs, 1 paragraph around 5-6 lines, but just don't randomly break paragraphs. Based on your this thing, give some diagrams, all of that, and you can go. Then sometimes, your paper will give you distinguish. Now, distinguish is to show the difference. So distinguish between 2 things. Now, if they say something like distinguish between a market economy and a command economy, 4 marks. Then they'll give you 2 marks for a market economy, 2 marks for a command economy. So I would say, I have 1 section about a market economy, right? Define it, characteristics, all of that. Another section about a command economy. So that is how I will nicely give that. So I will, when you are writing answers, I will show you. But just keep those words in mind, especially when you all are doing past papers. You all have the past papers to do, no? So when you're doing past papers, look for the keyword. When they are giving a question, see, are they saying what? Are they saying briefly explain? Are they saying outline? Or are they saying distinguish? Are they saying explain? So based on the keyword that is there, you need to write. So we have around 100 papers to do, no, in this whole revision program. So every paper that you all do, look at what is the question verb. Ekata haryanna write answer. When they say something like what to list, don't write paragraphs. When they say explain, don't go and write points. So that has to come from here. We'll improve on it. Don't worry too much about it. You can maybe take a screenshot of it if you all want. I will anyway share this answer scheme also. But if you want just to remember, take a screenshot, have those points in mind. Okay. Then coming back, where were we? Here, right. So I'm asking you in this question, what are the main disadvantages of price mechanism? That is one part of the question. So see, I told you, when I say what, you can give it in point form. So point form, not like a small 1 or 2 word points, a proper complete point. You see, so I have given Laman. So any 3, we'll learn this in detail in unit number 8. For now, you're not very sure about this, Lamai. Don't worry too much. You'll be like, sir, never even taught us what is this disadvantages. These are unit number 8. Unit number 8, we'll talk about how the market economy fails, right? How they fail, how the government intervenes. So this part comes from unit number 8, but they can test in unit number 1 also. That's why I have put. So here things like the presence of income inequality, the non-provision of public goods, failure to take external cost and benefit, that is externalities. Again, unit number 8, right? Macroeconomic instability. Sometimes lama there could be monopolies in the market, right? There could be different things. Any reasonable answer, right, which might not be there even in this, I will give you marks. So that is what. Now justify whether, right, whether the government is needed for this market economy. You can talk about money. I will give points accordingly. So then, no, not allocative function, right? And then now, why is the government needed, Lama? The government is needed in a market that can correct this. No, I remember one of you all, Lama. I think one of after class, you all were asking me, so what is this? How does the government provide things like public goods? Now, even think, Lama, in something like Sri Lanka, government is now coming and providing these public goods. Public goods like, for example, street light. Now, something like street light, the private sector can't earn a profit no lamai by providing those. So government only has to come and give those. Because can a country function without street light? No. Then now even think of, income inequality. So government Nulama is coming and solving this income inequality. Government is Nulama coming and charging taxes. They are providing transfers to the poor people like this. Aswasuma, I told you, all of that government is not doing. So that's why you need to talk about that. You need to say, look here, there are issues like this in a market economy. Therefore, government should intervene to. Yes, you can talk about private property rights. You can talk about Lamai how government helps with solving income inequality, how the government Lamai will use their monetary policies, fiscal policy. That is unit number 7, 8 and all we learn. You will get the most thing here. Don't worry Lamai too much about it, right? How the government solves externalities, how the government uses their monetary fiscal policies and solve macroeconomic instability, all of that. It's there, Lamai. This question is a little bit, I would say, to write a proper answer for this question, Lama, you need to know a little bit of unit number 7. You need to know a little bit of unit number 8. So we haven't done that, no. So don't worry too much about the specific details about it. Sir never taught us. No, I don't even know this. No, this is not in my unit 1 unit. No. So don't worry too much about it. These are there, Lama. In the future, it is there. There is a unit 1 connection. That's why I put it there. Once you are done with those units, then come back and see. It will perfectly make sense. Okay, so any reasonable point, Lama, I will give. No bonus mark, but any reasonable point, I will get. Okay, done. Right. Break Lama after I finish the paper. Okay. So coming into question number 5. Yes, you all already want to do the questions. The stadium story, not really, but we'll see. Depends on how you have read. Yeah. Price sales, but the market has allocated resources, not just due to a monopoly. Okay. The question was done. I'll show it. Let's then. Give me a second. Right. So question number 5. Question number 5 is saying income inequality. What is income inequality? Income inequality is where in the country there are some rich people, there are some very poor people. There is huge gap between the rich and the poor. Unequal. Income inequality has become a major concern for a country like Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka also, now just think, look at the, did you all realize, when the motor vehicle imports were open, vehicles were expensive, with the huge amounts of taxes. What did people say? Did you all see in the news? And everyone was complaining, right? Who can buy vehicles at this price? Man, look at the price. Didn't you all realize that in February, when they opened the motor vehicle import, released the ban, everyone was complaining, right? Who can afford vehicles? Man, look at the price. Man, look at how much they're taxing. Now go to the road and see how much of vehicles are there. How much of vehicles are out? Look at the amount of new vehicles that are there. So usually every day now, while I go to work and come to work, I track it with the number plate. So all the new vehicles now are with the number plate CBM. CBM, once that one is done, now they have also started CBN. So it goes in order. So CBM, CBN. Those are the mainly new vehicles. Once CBN runs out, then they will go into Lamai NLMNO, CBO. So it will go in that order, right? So usually if you look at vehicles with this CBM, CBN number plates, those are the new ones, brand new ones that came in this year after February. Look at how much of vehicles are there. Just stand in the roads of Colombo and see them. When I just randomly go to work, I just think of this, right? Because for clients also, we talk about the whole motor vehicle imports, how much of money is going out as dollars for this, how can that affect the exchange rate. So we talk about it, so it just runs in my head. So then when I go out there, I see, and now we have clients, big clients that we talk about today. Also, I met a client, can't tell you all names, bro, but you can guess if you all want to. So we had a presentation today for a client. That client is one of the they're into the motor vehicle sector in Sri Lanka. They do mainly two brands of vehicles they bring in. One is a bit of a luxury type of vehicle that they bring into Sri Lanka. The other one is a normal range basic thing. One is a German kind of a vehicle, one is a Indian brand. Okay. So I went there. So based on what they have also been talking about, I'm guessing. So based on what they have been talking about, they are also saying their motor vehicle sales are good. Right? Their motor vehicle sales are great. So even though now, even the high-end vehicle that they bring, it's so good. They are saying, initially they also did not expect that much of a demand. Because people were complaining, people were saying, who has money, how the gun, all of that. So that is a point to prove that there is so much of income inequality in Sri Lanka. Now, people like you and me might be wondering, how do you even afford a vehicle of 100 million? But there are enough and more people buying vehicles for 100 million. So that's income inequality. There are some people worrying about how do I fulfill my next meal? How do I get my lunch? How do I find money for my dinner? While there are people like that, there are also other people who are getting even now. Remember, did I mention about the Rolls Royce that came in? So did you all see the Rolls Royce? That was Rolls Royce Phantom, if I'm not mistaken. Right? The price of it, one was around 500 million, one was close to around 700 million. So imagine someone who can afford a vehicle for a 700 million rupees. A normal car, last year I bought a small car for 4 million rupees. This is how much? This is around more than 100 times of that. So imagine the income inequality that is out there. There are really rich and people, there are really poor people. That's what I'm asking you in this question. I'm saying income inequality is a major concern for a country like Sri Lanka. What are the methods that the government in like a mixed economy, like in Sri Lanka, how can they solve this level? That's what I'm asking you. So here, I am not going to, I don't want you all to see the question verb is my outline. Now look at how I have given my answer. Have I written a small point? No. Have I wrote a big paragraph about a point? No. I have given a small point, explained it in like 2 lines. That's what I have done. So here see, I'm talking about number one. So one best thing is progressive taxes. So if there is income inequality, if there are really rich people, charge high amounts of taxes from them. Now that's what the government is also doing, no? For the Rolls-Royce Phantoms and the Land Cruisers, Range Rovers that is coming into Sri Lanka, the high-end vehicles are huge taxes. The people who are earning now, even our income taxes, if you're earning above 150,000 a month only, you have to pay income tax. So people less than that, no income tax. After that, little by little, it increases from 150 to 200,000 this month. From this to this month. Exactly, there are brackets. I'm not going to that. It goes up to 36%. So people who are earning, let's say, above around 300, 400,000, their high level of income gets taxed at 36%. So that's progressive taxes. Give a small initial explanation not needed. Then Lama, you can talk about social welfare programs. Now, even for example, these Samurdhi, so social welfare, these are transfers, right? Samurdhi, now you have the Aswasuma, these pension payments, Lamai, for the needy. Then even for the disabled people, Lamai, people who have these kidney issues, people who have lost a leg, who don't have a hand. So those kind of people, Lamai, every month they get a certain amount from the government. They have to apply it, right? Government gives. So you can talk about that. Then minimum wages. Now, sometimes these really poor people get exploited. So they get exploited. So for that, the government can set minimum wages. Government can promote small and medium scale enterprise. Now, if you all have realized, now these big businesses, for them, it's very easy to get a loan. Okay, now the firm that some clients that we are looking at right now, they are looking at expanding. They're looking at going into different segments. Right. So let's say a client who was in the financial sector, now they want to get into tourism sector. Now they want to get into, let's say, the motor vehicle sector. So they, to get into those sectors, now they can borrow. They are big firms. But think about a small firm. Now, a small firm, let's say, for example, like me, let's say I tutor. Now I want to, let's say, start a whole, let's say, educational institute. For that, I have to, get a building, buy desk, chairs, all of that. Do you think the bank will easily give me a loan? They'll be like, who are you? And how are you going to pay us? Show us your income. Right? What are you going to keep as collateral? They will ask me 1,000 questions. I might even not even get the loan. So that is where, for small fellows like me, small businesses, and the government has to do some promotion. Like government, that is where they have these loans for these small and medium scale enterprise. They have all of that. Then you have different other things. Now redistribution of income comes for both 1 and 2. You charge taxes, give it to the poor. Price controls, fine. And so you can even give price controls as a point. So you control the prices. Now, especially for essential goods, you have price control. Now, for things like you all remember at one point, eggs prices were going crazy and the government intervened. They imported and kept the price at around 60. Now eggs are back to around 30. If you buy the big box, now it's still expensive. Not that. Free entrepreneurship, not a real point. So this is about how the government can intervene now. Tax benefits, no tax benefits. That means now who pays taxes? Taxes are paid by the rich people. You give the fellow a benefit means now he gets even richer. No? So you need to give an answer that will reduce the income of the rich person, increase the income of the poor person. That is how you minimize the income disparity. The rich guy, you tax the fellow, do all of that nonsense. Poor guy, you give transfers, minimum wage laws, you have price controls for the fellow, right? That's how you bridge the gap of income in Nepal. Now, that is what you have to be talking about, Lama, in this answer. So I don't want the exact answer like this, right? So any 4 points. Now remember, Lama, this is a 4-mark question. So for a 4-mark question, Lama, don't write 3 points. So yes, I would even say free education, healthcare, those are fine, Lama. So that is also for the poor fellow. Free education, healthcare, those are also valid points. So it doesn't have to be Lama in the marking scheme. Valid points, I will give you marks. Don't worry. So I would say any 4 points, you'll get your 4 marks. So have that in mind when you're writing. Right? Always break your points also. Don't put everything into one paragraph because examiner is giving you marks based on this. For job opportunities, I would not give it as a main mark. Solve income inequality, it might not directly solve, it might have long-term effects on it sometimes. To try to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. So SMEs, they are run by especially the poor people, SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises. So it's a small guys running. Small guys, very hard to get loans. So merit goods, I would go with that. Free education, healthcare, that will go under this. Okay. Done. Wage controls, not wage controls, minimum wage laws actually. You're not trying to control the wages. You're trying to keep a law for minimum wage. Okay, that. Then let me go into question number 6. Question number 6, do you all remember? We discussed this in class last. I asked you all market economies, are they capitalist? Do you all remember this? Should all market economies necessarily be capitalist? Should they be? Now, how do you look at that? A market economy is an economic system. Remember, a market economy is an economic system that uses price mechanism. Okay. A capitalist economy or capitalism refers to what? A capitalist economy is an economic system where who owns the resources? Where the private sector owns the resources. That is, remember that distinguish we learned last time. I told you the 2 bases of classify. So you have to highlight that. That is what you are doing this Lamai. So you have to say, look here, right? All market economies are capitalist and all command are socialist. You don't agree, Lamai. That's not correct. You don't even have to say halfway agree, Lamai. You don't even partially agree, nothing like that. You can directly say that you don't agree. So all market doesn't have to be this one. You can say that economy is a market economy if they use price mechanism. A capitalist economy is an economy that has private ownership. You can say usually a market economy that uses price mechanism will have private ownership of resources. But it doesn't always have to happen. Just because you are a market economy, that doesn't mean you have to always have private ownership. Usually, yes, that's why under market economy characteristics, we say private ownership, correct? Usually, yes. But it doesn't have to always happen. And that's what I told you about. No, market and capitalist is not the same. I went through this in my last class. You completely missed it there. That's the point that you all miss. A market economy is the economy that uses price mechanism to solve the basic economic problems. A capitalist economy is an economy where the private sector owns the resources. That is based on the criteria classifying economic systems. You went through that last class, you can go through that recording. So usually, yes, a market economy is a capitalist. Usually, an economy that uses price mechanism will have private ownership of resources, but doesn't always have to happen. Right? That's where you have China. China is a socialist market economy. China is a market economy, price mechanism, but they are not capitalist. The government owns the resources, socialist market. So you can give that if you want as example. And same way, Lama, you have to talk about command. Now, are all command economies necessarily socialist? No, no. If you all have, did you all do the past paper? Yes. Command economies could be capitalist, but so far there are no real world examples. Did you all do that past paper? Do you all remember the year that this was tested? If I'm not mistaken, 2013, 15, or 16. Can you quickly check? All market economies are necessarily so capitalist. 2015. Can you give me the exact question number? So do the past papers now. Do the past papers and then come and do this paper. It becomes easy. Because there are some certain past papers I twist around. The fifth one. So 2015 A levels. Question number 1, subsection 5. Which you all were supposed to do for homework this weekend. So that story you explain, Lamai. So for explaining that part, I'll give you 2 marks for this market and capitalist, 2 marks for command and socialist. We went through last one. Okay. Then Lamai, question 7. Question 7 is saying, explain why is the Sri Lankan economy considered to be a mixed economy? Now, what is a mixed economy? A mixed economy is Lamai, where you have the price mechanism, where the private sector runs it with price mechanism, and the public government runs it using the planning, where both of it works together, where you have the price and planning mechanism both operating in the same economy. That's what you call mixed economy. So they're asking you, explain why Sri Lanka a mixed economy. So now you have to prove it, Lamai. You have to show how in Sri Lanka government and all of that, government, private sector, all of it works together, Lamai. You see, I've given a sample answer. It doesn't have to necessarily be something like this. See, I'm saying economic system where they use both price and planning mechanism is called a mixed economy. So I give a small definition there. And then I'm saying in the context of Sri Lanka, resources are mainly allocated through price mechanism because the private sector is more dominant. And however, the market also has a certain degree of government intervention. So mainly, I'm telling in Sri Lanka, mainly it's price mechanism. People will produce the most profitable goods. They will look at the most cost-efficient production method. They will distribute goods to the people with the purchasing power. That's what they will usually do. But government will intervene. So government will, they will come and run certain industries. Right now, for example, education. Right? Government provides education. Government provides health care. And you can talk about those. You can talk about Lamai. Yes, you can talk characteristics of mixed. You can relate to it. Then you can talk about how the government comes and Lamai helps the vulnerable people. See, they have Aswasuma. They have Lamai for the retired old people. They have pensions. And you can talk about that. How the government sets labor regulations. For example, there is a minimum wage. Right? Minimum wage for plantation work and all. There are minimum wages. You can talk about those. Then how the government has them in the central bank, how they run certain things. Yes, Marpole scholarship. So what you don't have to have this exact answer. What you need to show is that in Sri Lanka, look here, okay, we have the private sector running most of it. Yes, price mechanism is there, but look here, government is also there. Government owns resources, government provides certain goods, government has these transfers, they do all of that. Yes, government controls with income disparity, all of that. You have to show, Nama, you have to show how the private sector and government are both working together here. That is what you call a mixed economy. So I'm not talking too much about the price mechanism part because that is a more obvious kind of a thing. Okay, right. Then there was Sri Lanka falls under a social market economy. We are a mixed economy. Mixed economy now is broken as social market, socialist market. So Sri Lanka is a mixed economy. In a mixed economy, we are also a social market, I would say. So I would say this of a write-up is enough, Lamai. I'll give you your full marks accordingly, but you don't have to write this exact same thing. Just show how both of it connects. Okay. Done. Protection of private property. Why they have called it democratic social welfare, that is the thing, that is for the name, it's there. Don't worry about the economic classification about it. Mixed economic falls on social market. Yeah, you can talk a little bit about it, but even if that is not there, that's okay. Okay. Then question number 8. Which of the following is a main characteristic of a social market economy? Now, this was my past paper question. Did you all see the past paper question? 2022 or maybe 23. 22, if I'm not mistaken. In a recent past paper question, there was this. Finally, you would have also felt good when you saw MCQ in the paper, 2022. So what is a social market economy, Lamai? A social market economy is where it's very, now they're asking you, Lamai, what is the main characteristic? Now, when you say a main characteristic, you would give the distinguishing, the main prominent one. Now, in a social market economy also, most of the resources will be owned by the government. But here, why not number one? One is the use of all. Right? I told you a social market economy is also very similar to a market economy, meaning private sector will run most of the things. But you can't say all resources will be owned. Most of it, yes. But again, even if they say private owns most of the resources, that is not the distinguishing characteristic. The distinguishing characteristic is this government providing this social welfare, social justice. The same thing, social welfare, social justice mean the same thing. So government has a very strong role. That's state. State means government. The state has a very strong role in providing social welfare. That's why, even if you take in Sri Lanka, right, under free education, free healthcare for the students who are poor, under Mahapula scholarship, retired people under pensions, generally poor people under Aspasuma. So government has a very strong role, Lamai, in providing that social. That is the main characteristic of a social market. I truly agree with you that a social market economy is also like a market economy. That means private ownership, yes, but that is not the main characteristic. So be careful that. So the answer here is number 4. Social justice, social welfare, same thing. Then question number 9. Question number 9 is saying, what is a social market economy? How does it differ from a socialist market? Remember, these are the two types of mixed economies. No? A mixed economy, is broken into social and socialist. That's how it's broken into. No? So here, how do we get along with this? Social and socialist. Here's one more thing. I will most likely, depending on my time schedule also, what I will do is, I will drop you all I will send you all a small Google form just to, depends on my time schedule, I'll look into it, right? To see where you all currently are. If anyone is falling a little behind, it's a little hard to, there is close around 450 students in both the groups, no? So it will be a little bit difficult for me on my end, but I will send you all a bit of a Google form to, just to see, are you all on track with the unit 1 work and all of it? So you can answer that. If there are people who are alarmingly a little behind and struggling and all of it, I will drop you a message personally and we'll sort that out. Okay, so if there's anything, you can always reach out to me. We'll get it done. Okay. So coming back to this, what's a social market now? So 4 marks now, for 2 marks, ideally talk about what these are, right? What these different things are. So here I'm saying a market economic system where the okay, where the government intervenes to promote social justice, or we call it social welfare, is what you call a social market economy. It's very like a market economy, but the government has a very strong role for what? Here, this 4th point you can write for social welfare. So if anything there is unfair, human rights are violated, there are vulnerable groups like the elderly people, the poor people, the unemployed people, disabled people, for all of them, now, why government will help. You would have seen that in Sri Lanka, no? All of that happens. So that's a social market. Then you need to say, look here, while that is a social market, then what is a socialist market? A socialist market is Lamai. You see, what does the word socialist mean? Socialist market is an example like China. A socialist economy is Lamai where the government owns resources. So I told you all, in China, even the house that you live Lamai is under the government's name. It's not under your name. No, in Sri Lanka, Lamai, this one is under your name. And then market means Lamai, you use price mechanism. That's what you call a socialist market. So government mainly has control. My government is the one who mainly owns all the resources. They decide on, but they run the whole thing. But the decisions they make is not based on planning mechanism. It is based on price mechanism. So you can have those words there and you can write a little bit about it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same answer that is over here, but overall, you can talk about it. So in terms of marks, the mark allocation can also a little differ. Broadly, around 2 marks for social, around 2 marks for socialist market, social market, socialist. If you can give a bit of an example, no problem. And then the last one, I kept it as an easy one. I'm asking you, what are the main functions of an economic system? So functions, it's another way of asking what are the basic economic problems. Because the economic system, their main thing is to answer these. No? So Anna, when I'm saying what are the main functions of an economic system, I'm saying to find optimal solutions to, or you can say to provide answers to the problems of what to produce in what quantity, how to produce, and those are the functions. They have to decide that. That is what the economic system is created for. Why do you have something called the economic system? It's to answer these basic economic problems, whether it's a market or command or mixed or whatever. Those are created for what purpose? To provide solutions for this. So you can talk about, yes, this is the resource allocation function, right? The resource allocation. This is the production technique or production technology, you can say. Okay, deciding on what is the production technique. This is the distribution function. So Anna, you can even label it that way. That is okay. So that's the whole thing there. Done. Right. That's the paper. How much do you all think you would have got? What to produce is also okay, but better to give it as one count. How much do you all think you would have got? A bit of a difficult paper you would have now. When I was discussing, you would have roughly. Did revision paper 2, Lama, did it go in line with whatever you had? What if you just wrote solve it? Where you have to write what the problems are also. Did your marking and your actual mark that you got, did it match for paper 2? Maybe 1 or 2 marks here. Maybe 5 marks up and down could have been something, but not totally different. Yeah. Paper 2 much. Nice. So you can also mark your papers like along with me. You have give some reasonable marks, right? You mark it in pencil, then the actual mark paper will come. No? Then see. So especially if you get like a very this thing. How much was the highest for revision paper 2? Okay, okay, give me a second. Let me check. I need to make the fly, guys. One more thing, I forgot to get into the this thing. I don't want to share names though, but let me try to share the top scorers without sharing the names. Because I'll give the names very soon. Right. So this is revision paper 1. The top scorers, if you send a picture, you will be there. Now, let's say this person doesn't send a picture, then I will include the next person in the list. So the people who are at 86, if someone doesn't send a picture in the top, you will be there in the fly. Okay. Then revision paper number 2. Let me make this one. Hold on. The problem with top 15 is very hard to make a fly with all of it. We'll go with top 10. So this is the, yeah, this is revision paper, this thing. Let me filter it. Okay, there are people who got 100 out of 100. So this is the top 10, goes until 95. So revision paper 2, the marks have been much higher than revision paper 1. Goes from around 100 until around 95. Right. So that's that story. Let me get back to my tute now. So we'll see, right? This paper also I will mark and I will send it to you soon. The admin will contact you. Admin will drop you a text with this thing. So send a picture. It could be any picture. Just don't worry too much about the background and all of it. The background anyway, I will remove it. So don't worry too much. It could be a selfie with random people there. I will just get your face. Don't worry. So for those this thing, the second term top scorers, I have it. I'll say that. Okay, that I'll do it in the theory class. Okay, so with that, my revision paper number 3, the discussion is done. I will share this answer scheme in the group. You can then compare and see and how it goes. Okay, so then what we'll do is now we'll take a small 10-minute break, and then the next part of today's class, we have to go through focus area number 4. That is on PPC. We might not have time for a quiz. We'll do a quiz next week. Next week, only we have the paper to discuss. We can have a quiz next week. So with that, we'll take a small break. And then next we have is focus area number 4. A very important part. So once we are done with this, then next week you have to do revision paper 4. The past papers, all of that also, but mainly revision paper 4 is what you need to get done. Right. So take a break for, I'll say 10 minutes. It's 8:29. So we'll take a break until 8:40. You can take 8:30 now. 8:40, 10 minutes. So I'll go until around 10:11 because I have to finish this. I'm not going to rush. I know you're tired. I'm also tired. I also just got home from work. So it's not easy, but it'll all be worth it. So stay and get this done. Right, so take a break.